As is tradition, every single year on this channel, we run through my most played music of the entire year. But what do we use? How do we find out these statistics? Do we use Spotify Wrapped? No. Do we use Apple Replay? No. Amazon Music? No. We're even more hipster over here, guys. We use Last FM Playback. That is right. And let me tell you right now, the stats that these guys pull out are far greater than anybody else's. I will say that. They're always super accurate. They're always on point. And it's really fun to have a look at the most played stats of the year. Have a look at what I've been listening to. And yeah, hopefully you guys enjoy this kind of video. It's obviously just a once a year thing. So let's get through it, and we're just going to run through Playback and see what we've got. Okay, then. You listened to 2,281 artists this year, 51% of which were new discoveries. That's kind of crazy. I mean, half the music I listened to, which probably sounds about right when you've somebody that has a YouTube channel like where, you know, you're kind of obligated to talk about new music. 51% were new discoveries. It makes sense that it's like that, but that's still kind of crazy. I mean, having all of these albums of artists I've listened to over the years to still be like hitting 50% new, I think is kind of mad. Like that is impressive. I've got to say, I've got to be honest, guys. That was pretty cool. It's pretty cool. But the one reigns supreme. I think I know who this is going to be, but let's just find out anyway. Yeah, it's Tyler. I scrobbled him 520 times, and it put me in the top 4% of fans worldwide. That's pretty cool. I mean, again, an artist as big as Tyler, you know, he's going to have a lot of scrobblers, particularly on a site like Last FM. You know, you've got all those music nerds who love Tyler. That's pretty impressive. 520 isn't a huge number for one artist, but to be in the top 4%, I'll take that. I'm okay with that. I guess this is just telling me where I was at throughout the year. I was always higher than the global average, I guess. It clearly obviously spiked, as you can see in October when Chromacopia came out, but my numbers were already pretty high for him even before that. So yeah, I think Chromacopia just kind of tipped him over that edge really by the end, which is pretty cool. They weren't the only artists to make an impact. They really weren't. Let's have a look. How do we figure this out? Oh, that's really weird. It's like 1's there, and then 2's here, and then 3's there, 4, and then it goes all the way around. That's kind of weird. 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, cool. Anyway, you've probably seen all those names pop up by now, but anyway, I was just trying to figure out how this worked. This is really strange. Kendrick number 2, 392. Charlie number 3. This was something that got confusing with my Apple Replay that popped up. It said that Metro Boomin was in my top 5. I assume it's because I played the Future and Metro Boomin albums quite a bit, and obviously played Like That a lot. So I was just a bit confused about that, because I was like, I haven't really gone out my way to play Metro Boomin as much as I've gone out my way to play Charlie. But anyway, Apple Replay, I think, quantifies the numbers a little bit differently than Last FM, which basically goes specifically on plays, like the amount of times you have played the artist, whereas I think Apple Replay goes on the minutes you've spent listening to the artist. So it's good to see Charlie here, because I was a bit annoyed about Charlie not being in my top 5 for that one, because I was like, Charlie is so obviously top 5. We've got Future at number 4, not really that far behind Charlie, actually. Then we've got Magdalena Bay, again, pretty tight numbers around here, all within like 6 scrobbles, which is kind of crazy. Porter Robinson number 6, 7 Big Thief. Somebody on my Twitter was like, I'm surprised you got Big Thief in your top 20, or whatever it was, top 25 I think I posted, compared to like all of these other artists. But it's like, guys, you got to keep up, man. I'm a big fan of Big Thief. I love Big Thief. I think when this kind of brand of folk music is done well, and Adrian Lenker's amazing writing, like there's very little not to like about Big Thief. Kaytranada, always playing Kaytranada. Of course, he dropped a new album too, which I thought was okay, but I was mostly playing Bubba, and 99.9% I would say with these scrobbles. The Beatles not far behind there, and then Kate Bush made it into the top 10, which was nice to see. Love to see some legacy acts and older artists making it in, because I do spend a lot of time listening to new music, so of course it is going to be all artists that have dropped within the year. But yeah, pretty cool to see that Kate and the Beatles make their way in. Some people tend to point out as well that my numbers per artist seems to be quite low. And that's probably true. I think a lot of people tend to just fixate on maybe 5 or 6 artists that they absolutely love, and they will have like thousands of scrobbles in just like one calendar year. I'm not that kind of listener. I don't obsessively fixate on just a few artists. I have a wider spread of artists that I absolutely love, so my numbers end up being quite low. So for you, maybe seeing, you know, somebody in the top 10 with 100 and something scrobbles might seem quite low, but don't forget, you know, from like, you know, 10 to 50, I've got like a bunch of artists that kind of have a similar amount of scrobbles, really. There's very little that tends to separate all of my favourite artists, because I just love so many and love so many of their albums and that kind of thing. So the numbers just kind of become more congested. But you'll see that my overall numbers per year, I do still listen to a lot of music. It's just not like fixated within like 1 or 2 artists, which I know a lot of people are like. You listen to 2,531 albums, which is over 6 per day. That seems unrealistic, I will say that. I think sometimes on Last FM it can separate out albums if an artist is like duplicated or joint with another artist. So I don't think that's fully right. Like, if, for example, say if you've listened to an album and it has a feature on it, like Charlie XCX and Christine and the Queens or something like that. That's just one example. I think that can separate out into its own album, even though it's still from one album. It can do that. It's a bit weird, Last FM. So that may be the one thing they've got wrong, actually. And also, if you're like really obsessed with one song from an album, I guess like Steve Lacy's Bad Habit would be a good example for me, where I play that song a lot, but I don't really go back to the album a lot. Again, that would count as an album, I think. Because it's like from an album separate to other albums you're listening to. So I think that's it. All I'm trying to say is I have a full-time job. I don't think I listen to 6 albums per day is what I'm trying to say. I don't think that's accurate. I think it's the way it records it is what I'm trying to say. Your favourite album this year was Imaginal Disc by Magdalena Bay. And you know what? I like that wording, because this in fact was my #1 album of the year. And if you haven't seen that video, you are a fool. You've got egg on your face. You're a big disgrace. You're messed up, my friends. Because that is my album of the year. But sometimes it doesn't always work out like that. My most played album isn't always necessarily my favourite album. But in this case, for maybe the first time in a good few years, actually, this was in fact true. Because last year my favourite album was Sufjan Stevens, but it certainly wasn't my most played album. Because, like, you know, it's not really an album you're going to play a lot when it's pretty sad, right? But yeah, it doesn't always work out that way. 162, top 9%, that's not too high actually, but I guess there'll be other fans out there that will listen to this album a lot more than I did. But as I say, I don't really obsessively play albums in that kind of fashion like a lot of people do. We got Chromacopia at #2. This kind of crept up actually. I thought it would move. Will it move? Yeah, cool. Yeah, Chromacopia crept up at #2. I played that a little bit towards the end of the year a few times. My girlfriend wanted to hear it, so we sat and listened to it together too, so that ended up boosting my overall numbers with that one, because it actually was about 5th or 6th for some time. But so it ended up climbing up to #2, which is cool. Brat #3, pretty much for like if there was a graph of like, you know, what was top for most of the year, honestly, I think it would have been this. I think Brat pretty much was locked in for a good few months. It was really up until like September, October, where obviously these 2 albums started being heavily in my rotation, because of course I imagine this came out in August. So throughout September, October, I played it a lot. And then, yeah, of course, this album came out too. So I think Brat probably had the #1 spot for the most months of this year. It just got kind of usurped towards the end in the last couple of months by these 2. But I don't know if it shows you a graph of that. I might be even wrong with that. Why Lord, no worries. Super replayable album. So good each time. Just really raw soul music, man. It's so good. Igor, you'll be happy to see this here, because my original review of Igor got a lot of flack and was pretty much a review that I don't stand by anymore. I didn't like this album at all, but it took some time to really sit with, took some time to really fully digest, get used to those vocals, and really appreciate the story that's being told. And it's just become such an amazing album to me, man. Like, compared to when I first heard it, to what it is now, it's crazy. Hypochondriac's probably going to be in my top 10 forever now. I mean, I just play this album so much. It's like, you know, a few years it's been out now, and I think it's been in my top 10 each year since it came out. Crazy. It's just so replayable. You get so much out of it every time. Individual tracks you can just repeat over and over. Crazy stuff. I absolutely love Breakins. Need him to drop soon. GNX, Kendrick Lamar, came out pretty late, but of course ended up making it here. Cowboy Carter. Honestly, I think the fact that it has like 30 songs kind of boosted this one, because this is pretty high for an album that I didn't have on my year-end list. I do like it though. I did put it in my honorable mentions, but for an album that I don't absolutely, you know, love, I think it really was just the fact that I kept going back to individual tracks. You know, Yaya, Bodyguard, like individual tracks just really kept pulling me back, and it kind of carried it into the top 10 by the end of the year. Smile, Porter Robinson, great album. Dark Times, Big Thief, again, kind of had a bit of a renaissance with Big Thief this year. Did really love this album a lot. Again, when it first came out, I did like it, but not as much as I do now. I don't know how much of this is going to actually show, but let's just keep going for the sake of it. Prelude to Ecstasy, Cold Visions, Blade. I kind of wanted to like this album more than I ended up liking it. I think it's really good. I think it's creative, and it's a creative step forward for Blade. But yeah, it wasn't one that I absolutely fell in love with, which is a bit of a shame. Plastic Death, super underrated album. One of the best albums of the year, and I saw it in barely no lists. Apart from Deep Cuts, shout out to Deep Cuts, because you got to love Deep Cuts. Yeah, he had it on his, but other than that, I saw it on no lists. Submarine, The Marias, kind of a bit of a sleeper hit this year, honestly, this one. And it even had a sleeper hit coming from the album too, where one of the tracks randomly started to surge and make it onto the charts for a few weeks, which was really cool. But yeah, just like an album, I feel like over time, more and more people have kind of just been like, damn, this is good. You love to see it, because it really is good. Almighty So, Chief Keef, of course, Good Kid, Mad City, Kendrick Lamar, how could it not be? Melt My Eyes, See Your Future, Denzel Curry did a worst to best for his albums this year, so of course it makes sense that he's crept up in here. Flyboy, Tyler Creator, there's always going to be some Tyler. Cassandra Jenkins, a little bit of an underrated album from this year as well. Love this thing, love it. Raven Lene, number 21. I think we're going all the way to 25. We Don't Trust You, Future and Metro. Honestly, I think it's like 50 of those scrobbles are basically like that. Honestly, I only listened to the album a couple of times because I really couldn't fully get into it, and the rest of the scrobbles are basically just that song. Donuts by Jay Dilla, obviously, absolutely adore what he does and he was doing back then. We Still Don't Trust You, maybe a little bit of a Cowboy Carter effect there, with like, you know, so many tracks just kind of piling onto the album to the point where I did keep going back to it, because I was like, I want this to grow on me, and it just never really did. And then Future's Monster, which is maybe a bit of a random one, but honestly just my disappointment with the Future and Metro Boomin albums this year kind of just made me want to listen to like some classic Future and just have that high and that rush of how good he once was and how great their chemistry can be, but I just don't think it showed up on these albums at all, really. Which is a hot take, so a lot of people would call We Don't Trust You rap album of the year, but I don't see that, to be honest with you. You listen to 13,000 tracks with an average of 1.8 scrobble per track, and my anthem of the year, I think I've already given this away, really. But yeah, Future, Metro Boomin, Kendrick Lamar, like that. I wonder where this photo is from, actually, because it's surprising that they have this photo of them together. Shout out to Last FM for knowing like where to get these pictures from. You scrobbled it 48 times, there you go, I said 50, putting you in the top 5% of fans worldwide. My top 5 songs of the year, no real surprises here. Again, if you have watched my lists, which I hope you bloody have, then you would know this is basically all of what was in my top 10 tracks of the year. The Kendrick beef just really took me by surprise this year, man. It really locked me in. And yeah, all those tracks are just stellar to me, absolutely stellar. Okay, you hit 24,175 scrobbles, putting you in the top 11% of listeners worldwide. See, this is what I was saying. This number was always going to be very high, and I think, yeah, that kind of just captures what I was trying to say before, where like I listen to a lot of music, but I don't always pile my listens onto one or two artists to the point where I'm like massively hitting out like thousands of scrobbles per one artist in a single year, which I know a lot of people do, and I know a lot of people listen to music in that kind of way. But yeah, top 11% is pretty cool. I mean, you'd maybe think it would be higher considering I'm such an obsessive music listener, but I guess maybe this year I fell back a little bit with how much I listen to. Who knows? Okay, let me see. Describe me as versatile, curious, and a nomad. Oh yeah, Frances McDormand would love me. Consistency describes how regular your music habits are. Yeah, I mean, that can't really change. I don't think I miss a day of music. Like, I don't think I have a day where I just don't listen to music, which is you know, maybe uncommon for the average person. So that makes sense. Replay rate, how often you return to your favorite artist? 46%. See, again, that might be an indicator as to what I was saying before, but that's better than it used to be. I used to be really bad at like going back to the artists I love or going back to albums I love. And then I hit a point and had a bit of an epiphany, and I was like, why don't I go back to the albums I love that much? And I always make time for it now to make sure I do that throughout my day if I am listening to music, because it's like I should be spending a good chunk of my time listening to music I actually like, because it's silly not to do that, really. Why are we wasting our lives listening to things that we don't always like? How long you spent listening to your favorite artist? Yeah, okay, this is really very much what I was trying to say before. Concentration, 9%. That is crazy. That's really low. 29% variance, how diverse you're listening to was this year. Higher percentages mean you explored more tags. That seems a little low. I just can't really fathom how, like, the amount of different albums I listen to in genres and like sub-genres within like a single genre that can feel a bit made up sometimes. But like, maybe it's just the tags on Last FM that aren't varied. But yeah, that is low. I mean, I guarantee they probably have like a million artists that are just listed as alternative, and that's why. And I'm not trying to make excuses for this number, but that just is not right. I mean, you can go to rate your music, and within that one album, there's like 12 genre tags attached to it. But that's rate your music, and that's way more detailed than your average site. I just would assume that Last FM aren't that detailed. So if something is just a rap song, it might just be tagged rap and that's it. Whereas, you know, is it trap? Is it, you know, southern hip hop? Is it West Coast? Is it boom bap? I don't know if Last FM go into that much detail. So that to me is ridiculously low. I don't think that's right. So another maybe slight L for Last FM there. And discovery rate, 51%. We already knew that. It told me at the start. I don't know why they've put the Joy Division shirt on this page, but sure. Your favourite time to listen to was 4 p.m. That makes sense. I do, yeah, at the end of my work day, that's kind of the time I stick on my music. I don't know why I just did that, but you know what I mean. Your longest streak was 366 consecutive days. Yeah, I mean, was it a leap year? So basically I didn't stop listening to music. I mean, yeah, sure, that makes a lot of sense. I don't know why it needed to tell me that. It could have just said you didn't miss a day of music this year. Out of everyone on Last FM, you were the 75th top listener of this artist. Halo Maud. Okay. Yeah, she's pretty low-key. She's not really that well known. I really got into her music this year. I ended up seeing her live at a local festival too. She was very lovely, very sweet, very nice music, very kind of like indie pop, chamber pop, French pop stuff. Very lovely stuff. Yeah, sure. You were the 5th top listener. Let's go. Who's this going to be? Let's go. Places and Spaces by Donald Byrd. Genuinely one of the greatest albums I've discovered in the last few years. Truly sensational stuff. It's got this kind of jazzy, soulful, funky feel to it. Vocals are spectacular. The instrumentals are lovely as hell. Falling Like Dominoes, truly one of the best songs I've ever heard. It's good to see that I'm in the top 5 there. And you were the 47th top listener. Are we just naming random things now? Oh, of this track, Zoom. Yeah, great song. Super underrated as well. I mean, this year we saw Nasty... Ooh, nice. We saw Nasty go viral. And it's a good little fun track. But the real winner of this year for Tinashe was Zoom. This is the best thing she put out this year. Machine Drum and Tinashe coming together is clearly a great combination. And this is the overall number here. I can change the colours. Oh my god. What colour should I have? That's a pretty nice one. I can have any of these colours. Oh my goodness. The choices are endless. I'm going to land on this one. Yeah, so obviously top 5 artists, top 5 albums. Yeah, okay, see, look what I was saying with the top tags. I mean, you can't deny what I said now. Rap, hip-hop, pop, electronic, and indie rock. What kind of electronic, though? That's the problem, isn't it? It's just not going to be specific as to what it is. And that's fine. It's Last FM. They don't have to get everything perfect, but that kind of proved what I was saying before with like the 28% variation rate or whatever it was. I knew that was some bullshit. And for the sake of this video, I did upgrade to Pro just to have a look at some of more of the detailed sections. And yeah, I mean, you kind of already know all of this here, where it's, you know, all my favorite albums and artists and songs of the year. We do have a little bit more detail scrolling down. My first play song of the year was I Want to Dance With Somebody by Whitney Houston. Banger. Banger only. Bangers only at the start of the year, guys. Bangers only. Daily Scrobbles. Again, this is a Pro feature. Last FM, you should pay me to do all this, by the way, I'm just saying. Because they are not. Daily Scrobbles. I think it looks like May 31st was my highest one. 123. Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much, that must be why it's white, right? Weekly Scrobbles. Wednesday is my busiest day, busiest hours, 4 p.m. The top tags is exactly what I was trying to explain before. There isn't really much variation within those tags. I suppose they do have trap and rap as a separate thing, so fair enough, but electronic is too broad. Like, is it house? Is it ambient? What is it? These things are too separate to be just thrown into one category. It's silly. Music by decade, I mean, come on, it's obviously going to be 2020s. I have a YouTube channel where I talk about modern music. It's always going to be that every time. It kind of does fall into a nice pattern, though, where it basically goes like all the way to the bottom, apart from 1970s, which is slightly bigger than the 80s, which is interesting. Okay, now we're looking at comparisons to last year, which, wow, yeah, it's quite a drop. 13,000 tracks to 16,000 tracks. 2,500 albums versus 3,400 albums. That is pretty much a drop, actually. And then this all was different too. Oh no, this is a global average. Okay, cool. The artists also dropped as well. Interesting stuff. Mainstream score. Last year was 63%. This year is 65%. Most obscure artist was Papa. So according to this, I'm balanced, but whatever really that means, I'm not entirely sure. So I guess it's just dependent on how many other listeners there are per artist. It's got to be something like that, right? Some quick facts. Average scrobbles per day, 66 per day. Longest streak is days in a row, 366. It's up by 1 because it was a it was a leap year, so that's broken the record from last year because there was an extra day this year. That's quite funny. Listing time has gone down by quite a margin as well. I don't know what happened this year that dropped everything so much, because that's a huge drop in listening, actually. Love tracks has gone down as well. I don't use that feature a huge amount, so that's probably not surprising. Did you know your 2024 was lit? You listened to 29 tracks with fire in the title. And then the community. Oh, hey up, let's go. Let's compare it to some of my friends on the site as well. This guy's crazy. I messaged him last year being like, how are your numbers so crazy? He always just does insane numbers. RGS was 18th. He's a cool guy. On Twitter, I talked to quite a bit. I was 20th in my overall ranking of all my friends. I don't know how. Oh, out of 109. So yeah, you know, you're never going to be like top 3, are you? If you're comparing yourself to 109 other people. Discovery was 18. Again, I'm surprised it's still so good, considering like I listen to so much music, it's almost like you feel like it hits a point where it's like there can't be much more to discover, but yet there always is. Musical Matches, 112 other people had this song Like That as their top track. I assume I'm not friends with these people, though. I think it's just a random list of 112 people, and that's it. We're just going to leave it there. We've had a look at all the different stats, all the different facts, and all of the exciting little tidbits of what I've been listening to this year. Hopefully you find this interesting. I like the way Last FM do this. I think they go into so much minuscule detail. I think it's really fun, and yeah, you can't really deny the quality of what they go for with these. I suppose to summarise, I've listened to less music by 20% this year compared to what I listened to last year, but I'm still hitting high numbers anyway, and yeah, I'm consistent. I'm not going back to all my favourites as much as I probably should, and my mainstream score is 65%, whatever that really means, who knows. And that's it. Hopefully you've enjoyed this video. Hopefully you've enjoyed to see what I listen to and have been playing throughout the year. If you would like to share your stats in the comments below, please do. Tell me your thoughts on mine as well. Do subscribe for more 2025 content, as this is basically the final 2024 video, really. Unless I come up with anything else between now and the next month or so. It's, who knows. There may be more to come. But yeah, this is kind of the final major video that I do of 2024. Of the year. Hopefully you've watched all the lists, the best songs, the best albums, all that stuff. Please make sure you watch those as well, and subscribe for more content in the future. Got lots of exciting things to come in 2025, so make sure you're here for it. Have a good day. Goodbye.